the second screencast in the series, introducing each week of activities in the Year 8 Poetry and Classics module, deals with the character of Circe, an enchantress that Odysseus meets after escaping from Polyphemus, he looked at last week, and whilst he continues to wander through the Mediterranean. He lands, after some more scares, on the island of Circe, an enchantress, although at the time he doesn't necessarily know this is where he is. He's managed to upset the gods still more on his journey, and amongst other things has also managed to sort of spoil things for mankind by releasing all the winds that torment sailors from a bag in which they were trapped, that had been given as a present by King Aeolus. When he returned to Aeolus to ask if he could possibly have the bag resealed and the winds popped back into it, he was told to go away, having angered the gods so much that this wouldn't really be an option. So he's blown to an island where there seems to be a lot of wildlife around. Odysseus kills a stag, the men have a nice feast, and a few of them head off inland, heading towards Circe's house. They're aware that there's lots of wildlife, particularly pigs around the place. And sure enough, when they arrive at Circe's house, her response is to transform all the men into animals. Eventually, as his men keep vanishing, and Odysseus is aware that the number of animals on the island keeps growing, he sets off to find Circe for himself. On the way, he actually bumps into Hermes, the messenger of the gods. You remember him from the little task that you did in the first week when we were looking at the Harry Potter names. But he meets Hermes and is warned and given a little potion that will protect him from Circe. Sure enough, it does. She isn't able to seduce him. And also he persuades her to release his men from their spell. Odysseus and his men spend a good year on Circe's island. Might seem surprising, since he's so desperate to get home to his wife that he's prepared to do this, but he does. He spends a year on the island before the journey is continued. Notice also that he is persuaded by his men to continue the journey, rather than showing any great wish to do so himself. Before they leave, they're given advice by Circe of how to make their journey go a little more easily. Not only does she warn him of threats that lie ahead, of the sirens, of Scylla, of Charybdis, but also tells him that he has to journey down into the underworld amongst the dead, to pay their respects to a dead colleague who has fallen overboard and therefore is unburied earlier in the journey. That's not really something to look forward to. Here's a picture painted in the 19th century of Circe. You can see she's surrounded by lions and flowers. The colour imagery is quite fun. You might like to think about that as you have a little look and as we run. It won't be the only picture you see in this particular activity. Circe herself is a minor goddess. She's the daughter of the sun. She's got a track record. She murdered her husband and was imprisoned on the island as a result. We know she transforms men into animals. She wants to seduce Odysseus. And they settle down for the year, as I said earlier on. Now, one of the issues with this week's work is that you're going to be working, obviously, with a passage of the Odyssey. You're also going to be discussing a modern poem based on this myth, which looks at it in a very particular way. I won't spoil it for you, but you're going to be looking very much at the structure of the poem and the style with which the poem is written. You may also be asked to respond in a creative manner to this story. This story has inspired artists, so one of the things that I think you may well be asked to do in this section of the work is think about a creative response. This week, though, I want you to have a think and use your imaginations. Odysseus is sent by Circe to the underworld. He buries, or he pays respects to, the dead helmsman who fell overboard. And whilst he's down there, he meets or sees a great many dead heroes and dead villains in states of torment or paradise. Your thinking task this week is this. If you could, in some way, revisit somebody from history who is dead, who would you choose and why? And what would be the criteria that you would use to help you make that decision? I think it's hard. I have no idea who I would want to go and choose. It would probably be a musician. musician, but it might not be. It might be somebody else. I have absolutely no idea. But my short list of 5 probably includes the writer Thomas Hardy, musicians Gustav Mahler and Mozart. I'd be fascinated to go far enough back to meet, if only for 5 minutes, somebody like Socrates, the Greek philosopher. Also think it might be quite fun to meet, however short and fleeting that meeting was, somebody about whom I have heard, but about whom I don't know a great deal. I think it might be fun to go and meet one of the great Egyptian pharaohs. I don't know what they might have. You think about it for yourselves. Who do you want to meet, and why? Good luck.